years have you been at the Lighthouse?
So I started volunteering in 2008, and I volunteered through the 2008 season, the 2009, and they hired me in August of 2009. So it'll be 11 years this year as an employee.
That you don't receive any government funding. I was actually surprised by that. So there's no government funding at all for the Lighthouse?
And believe it or not, being on a Navy base, you would think that, but as part of the agreement where we have the lease to the property from the Coast Guard, it's actually a Coast Guard property on a Navy base, is that we operate that with no expense to the federal government. So we're like any other organization. We can apply for state grants and other grants, but there is no direct funding.
Now, I find it very interesting that you mentioned the shift from retail to nonprofits. I know personally, I was an IT guy and worked with, managing projects and managing computers, and I never thought I would IT role, which is kind of really extroverted for a lot of our IT kind of people that work with that. How do you explain that good shift from retail over to nonprofits?
I used to sit there and think, I'd ask, I'd literally say I have an anthropology degree, cultural anthropology degree, and my working background is in retail. And, what do I do with this experience? And I think what it did is you're selling a product, and no matter what we do, we're selling some sort of product, and across the board. And the way I had to really reframe my mindset was that I'm selling an experience, and on the museum side and on the business side of the Lighthouse, and then really building an organization on the backside. And that really building the organization come from a lot of my sports background with dealing with sports teams and how you need certain people to play those certain key positions or fill those roles in a nonprofit. And so I'm building a team and also developing an experience, which is my product that I want to put out to the public. And really it's just, what are the core things that you do? And then how does that transcribe from one side to the other? And how do I get people to believe in my mission? To be honest, what are we here for? We're here to save this tower for future generations. And it was in bad neglect. We didn't know how bad it was until we got into it. And there was, in the 90s, they wanted to tear everything down but the tower. And we really made it a dramatic comeback. So.
When I was doing some research, I read it back in 2018, a Pensacola News Journal talked about the big restoration project you did, about the money that was placed there to restore it. And can you explain a little bit about that restoration project?
Absolutely. In 2010, we did an assessment, and we scraped up together as much money as we had, and we hired an architect, and they said, you got about $600,000 worth of work to do. We probably had $3,000 in the bank. And so, how do we do this? It's like eating elephants one bite at a time. And we put our ducks in a row, and we started, what are we going to do to keep the business going? First, we had to get open to the public, and then how are we going to keep this place? And in the end, we ended up spending $3 million over a 5-phased project. We had a lot of interim projects that kept us open to the public and kept our doors open so we could make that revenue, small projects here and there. And in 2013, and when we started in 2009, there were no grants. We'd just come off that economic recession. State wasn't giving out money, but we were very fortunate to get with Impact 100. We applied in 12. We were so close and came back in 13. And that nonprofit really put us over the edge and really gives a jump start into this multi-phased project, which we concluded in 2018 with another Impact 100 grant, which was the full restoration of the heart of the lighthouse, which is the first order for no lens.
The Impact 100 grant is huge because it's a nice sum of money, but it's also a very rigorous process. I went through part of the process in a different position, and to go through the process, everything out and look for your plans and your financials and your goals and do site visits. It's a very process that really is strenuous and put a lot on you. So congratulations on winning those grants, because it definitely is definitely an reward for your hard work.
I think there's a lot of benefit, and they always talk about the impact of impact. And I think one of the impacts that's really, really understated is the fact that if you can go through an impact process, you're ready for any grant application. They have the best accountants, the best nonprofits, the CEOs, and they make your organization They fine tune it, and it prepares you for anything you need to do. And then of course the amazing support that you get from those ladies.
Thank you. I appreciate you mentioning that details. One of the other things that you heard that really resonated with me is that nonprofits are businesses. When I started with the chamber, we're 501c6. We're a nonprofit, but we're not tax deduction, so you can't write tax deductions to the chamber. And me switching over, I didn't really realize that a nonprofit's a business too. It's not just something that is there and you gotta make no money. You have to make money, and you have to put money into the business to make it run. Can you explain a little bit about kind of the confusion people may have from a nonprofit to a business and how they both are same and different?
There is. Nonprofits are mission driven, and other than that, and they're the tax. It's really, I think the nonprofit is a misnomer, and it needs to. It's a business that is a charitable business, and charitable business is there to help move the mission. You have your mission with the chamber there, and then I have mine with the Lighthouse. Our mission is the preservation and restoration. But other than that, it has to be operated like a business. And I think a lot of museums get in trouble with the idea that they can receive state funding or local funding and not pay attention to the details that every other business operates under. And you have to have a bottom line. And there's a lot of big museums that don't understand, and they run deficits consistently. And they ended up, especially in these times, and this year, a lot of museums across Florida have had to close because they've consistently ran those deficits and not run their organization like a small business, is which we are.
The topics talk about surviving during turmoil, and I know you guys went through the NAS shootings there. You went through the fact. Explain some of the ways you're having to get through some of these challenges, the hurricane, the COVID, all the turmoil happened this year. What tricks and tips have you used to help get through this turmoil?
This is a fantastic question, and at this point, we can't create a future, but we can. We can't predict it, but we can create it. And I think in 2016, 17, we were starting to get to the end of our restorations, and what's coming up. I knew in 2001 that we had an attack at 9/11. What happened to our particular circumstance was the base shut down. So we always, and I should say, the Lighthouse has always prepared for the unforeseen. And I think maybe in businesses and in our personal lives, we need to do the same thing. Dave Ramsey's fantastic. If he's got the 10 little steps, you need to have that 6 months of savings and build towards that. And that's what we did as an organization, is that we started putting money away. And another nonprofit organization that really helped us with that was ACE, Arts, Culture, Entertainment. And on their application, it said, do you have an operating reserve and do you have endowments? We don't have a lot of money for the endowment, but we sure could look at our operating reserves and how did that function. So I think one of the big things that's really carried us is pre-planning. And we're too late to talk about pre-planning now for the unforeseen, but now how do we operate in the unforeseen? And I think it's agility. I was talking with somebody in the networking, and it started with money, and we have to look and change how our paradigms are. How do we operate? We're doing these conferences virtually now. As a museum, we need to get our message out virtually. We need to have more touches with our people who aren't coming to our site. We have reduced. Where could we cut our expenses? We're doing the same things with different organizations. And I think the best thing is we stick to it, and we try to. The only way past it is through it.
Questions, feel free to type in the chat and we'll cover those questions. So I don't want to have you or anything, but when do you think the Lighthouse to the public to come and see it again?
So and you mentioned you touched topically. I think we've had the triple whammy, and first being the terror attack, and we got past that terror attack, and March 13th, March 23rd, we were looking to get open to the public. We were within 2 weeks. and COVID struck, and then the towns, across the board, we shut down. I shut the organization down for 2 months. We shut down until May 15th, and then we started to get back. And again, during the summer, we were 2 weeks away, and then June we got that surge. And you hate to say this, we were within a week right now, and of course we're having this second or third wave, or however they want to put it. To give you a definitive answer, I could never do that. And our hope is with the vaccines that are coming down, or herd immunity, or whatever happens, that it could potentially be early in the year. We're pushing for. We have started to work appointments in for the general public, and there's we are maintaining our schedule as though we're open to the public, and we are open. If you can get a military ID or someone like that to sponsor you on, we're there. We're open. We're doing the servicing of the DoD and their dependents, and we'd like to have everybody out there because this is your lighthouse, and we're there preserving that for you. And know that while we're there, we're making it better for you for the next time you are able to come out.
I mean, you truly look at it as one of the icon features when you look at the Navy base and you look at the museum. Look online, I saw a lot of the photos, and that lighthouse is something that stands out as a symbol of Pensacola that people recognize and people admire. A lot of my friends from up north in the Rhode Island area and Massachusetts area, they're shocked to see lighthouses down here. And when they see them, they want to come and visit those and be part of the lifestyles they're used to having. I know we're talking also about Turmoil. So can you explain a little bit about you and your position as executive? I know there's a lot of nonprofits out there. Some of them are truly all volunteer based. Some of them have a paid position like an executive director. Can you just talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. So our organization, as I had mentioned earlier, started with 10 volunteers, very well-meaning retirees, all civil servants without the business acumen. And I was a volunteer for my first year up until 9, and really volunteered until 10, to be honest. And we were all volunteer, and we're still primarily volunteer. We have at our biggest and busiest, we have 15 staff members, but we typically have 65 to 70 volunteers who put anywhere from, we had been approaching 10,000 volunteer hours a year. So I think, again, with the nonprofits, is a lot of these nonprofits, you're looking at some of these that are all volunteer driven or primarily volunteer driven, and really we're there to keep the doors open so that they can provide those services. And these people are volunteering is we can't afford them, honestly, but they're willing to give their time, talent, and treasure to us to support our mission because they believe in what we do.
I think it's really interesting talking about your wife saying, "Hey, John, it's great that you volunteered out in this area, but you need to look at finding some ways to pull some money in." And I definitely understand that, being an executive president of a small organization. So I know that feeling as well. It really is a teamwork for the whole family to be involved. And my wife's great. She's been very involved working with Lloyd and Robin with Pensacola Network from the very. She's there to support me and help me out and understand when I have late night events or if I have to go do a weekend thing. So it really is a partnership. Can you kind of explain some of that relationship you have in your family about how it really is a family affair for everyone with the?
I will do that. And I hate this. I'm not speaking for you, but from my experience, I can tell you that we may be paid staff members, but there's still a passion and there's still a give because we're not paid for every hour that we're putting into the place. And we're here because, and we could be in the private sector doing better, making more, but it's because we believe in what we're doing. And I think without the support of our families, we couldn't do what we do because we have to have that rock and that foundation at home to be able to give of ourselves the way we do. And I can't explain it better than that. You miss a lot of family functions, you miss a lot of kids, and you try to maintain that home life balance, but there's a lot of sacrifice from the family to give to the nonprofit organization. It's unquantifiable through dollars.
Yeah, and I definitely can speak to me in that regard. I feel the exact same way. It really is a passion. I feel like the position I'm in now. I was driven to this position through choices of life and different things in life and opportunities. And some days you kind of banging your head against the wall, go, why am I in this? But it's very brief because the passion comes back and you know that that's what you're meant to do at this time. So I understand that exactly. And I appreciate you being so dedicated to the Lighthouse. So what do you foresee in the future as far as, once we get past issues, COVID-19 and the base reopens again, kind of what does you see as your ideal dream of how the Lighthouse will run in the future?
We, as a participatory museum, and I say that is, I want people and I want everyone to understand that this is their lighthouse and their museum. And even across the board in the history field, as we're working to democratize the stories that you hear. And of course, there's a fantastic building there, but we want to talk about who built it. And it was built by African-American slaves. There's a story to be told there. It was supported later by freed slaves who lived around the property. Spanish immigrants came here. So to talk to those individual people versus this grand theme story, which there is a grand theme story, but we want to, I think the Voices, it does it. There's a tapestry of our history that's woven by so many cultures and people. Pensacola is exceptional in the fact that it had 6 female lighthouse keepers, which you wouldn't know about, but we did. And they maintained the light. They had the same pay, got to keep the job as long as they could do it. And they did it. And so I guess what we're going to do is make a more virtual experience now. Obviously, we're going to be more inclusive in our storytelling and in our experience. And I mean that across the board, but we're looking at putting virtual experiences so people who can't visit the lighthouse can actually experience the lighthouse. So I guess we're going to make it as modern a museum as you can expect it to be. And I really want it to be a center for community more than a museum. And we were headed that way, and we hope to get back into that position.
Pensacola is full of so much history, and things that people don't know. I didn't realize some of the facts you just mentioned about about the slaves and freed slaves and the Spanish influence. So those are all things that are neat. I see we have some folks on the line here in the chat box. We got Jamin Wells on the line, and he's been doing a lot with the history of Pensacola and working with that. I know we have Chris Hendricks on the chat box as well, and Chris has been doing a great amount of work and helping identify Black businesses and pulling directories together and connecting people in that fashion. So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask the questions in the chat, and we'll bring them up. Sitting at about 6:24 now, so we talked for a little while already with Lloyd that I'm not too far. Is there anything else you want to say that people may not know about the Lighthouse or know about your nonprofit that you have, or anything that you can?
Where do you start, man? And by the way, hey, gentlemen, he's done a lot of work with us, and he actually did some transcribing of our keepers logs, and he's had a lot of his students come out our way. So thank you for that support. But if anybody on this chat wants to volunteer or like to support, we'd love to have you come out, and we'd love to show you around. Again, right now, the volunteers are the lifeblood, and it's really been a strain here lately with our volunteers because your volunteer base tends to skew to the upper age demographics, and many of them are choosing not to volunteer anymore. And I think a lot of nonprofits are going to be suffering because that free labor force and that experience has been removed from the nonprofit arena, or limited for sure. So
10,000 hours, a lot of hours. I mean, you mentioned the number, that's a tremendous amount of time and energy and treasures put towards it.
It is. And we used to take note of the 1,000-hour volunteer, but that's become, I hate to say common, that's a lot, but we have multiple 1,000-hour volunteers that are putting a lot of time in, and you just wonder where does that inspiration come from, and how do we make that contagious?
Now, how big is your board of directors? How many board directors do you have?
We have an 11 person board, and then we have our president emeritus, who is the founding president, and our founder in as consultants. So it's pretty good size. And as right at this particular time, with the shrinking in volunteers and things like that, it's actually rather large, considering the size of the organization at this point. But it's good, and it's a working board.
Now, a lot of people I know, consider opening nonprofits and starting nonprofits, and you were kind of there from the very beginning as far as what you did and the vision and plans that you had. Can you kind of explain to some folks that may be thinking about having a nonprofit, kind of where that start comes from and some of the initial things that you can do to help get a nonprofit started?
That's interesting. First, we're going to assume that you're starting with a passion and you have that mission, and you're going to want to find like-minded folks. And then is the actual legal process. And an interesting fact is that the Lighthouse, the Pensacola Lighthouse Association, operated for 2 years without a nonprofit. It was under the assumption that the first treasurer had filed the paperwork, and he didn't. And so we had to go back and do things backwards. And it's challenging, and you're going to want to get some people that, where do you start? It's worth the time to put towards it. And if you believe in what you're doing, and I'd be happy to walk you through the steps, but there is a process to it.
John, one of the things I really appreciate your candor. If anyone on this call knows, me and John, we didn't write down, I didn't give him questions. This is what I'm going to ask you. Therefore, talking one-on-one, and we're just having, so I appreciate you being able to answer the questions that I'm asking you and be able to answer those, because it's nothing prepared, or it's just us talking to people who are out here listening to the Pensacola Network. And I appreciate, from me, being involved with nonprofits, switching over as well too. You can't be disappointed when you hit bumps in the road. You have to bounce back, be resilient. There's areas that you don't know about when you're dealing with finances, when you're dealing with different laws that may change and rules, and you got to just stick towards that passion that you have and figure out that you're going to find ways to get through it all.
Right. I think
right now, do you have a physical office you're working out of, or are you pretty much virtual?
We do. We're actually open. Like I said, we're open to the public, and we've brought our staff back on. It's in a reduced capacity, and but we have my admin / bookkeeper, and then a curator, and then myself are working in the administration building, and then we typically have 2 staff members on grounds, and then 1 to 2 volunteers. So, and of course, that's the front side. You really don't see the back side of that organization, where you have a finance committee who's going through all your finances with a fine-tooth comb, who's setting your budgets. And it's interesting to see the amount of backside hours that actually get put into an organization, your development committee, the boards, and things like that. So without I think right now, the most important committee we have is the finance committee, because I work to streamline our budget as much as possible, tighten those ends, and we've managed to be at a break-even pace right now. And as we stay right there, we're going to be fine. And but it took a lot of cutting and carving on a budget.
Now, do you have any problems with damage at all from the hurricane?
One of the more travesties or challenges that we've had, yes, we actually did suffer some damage from the hurricane. And if you're familiar with the Lighthouse, it's a 2-story structure with a house in front and the tower in the back. And the upper porches were actually, the wind blew so hard out there that it pushed the upper porches back. And we had done some work in 2017. And had we not done that work, the entire porch would have fallen. And then we had a lot of trees and live oaks on base that fell and destroyed a lot of the fences. We had probably a foot to 2 foot of debris in the yard, and took us about 10 days to get the debris cleared. And then we got the porches repaired, and we're about to get the fences repaired. So we're just about where we were. And actually, December 5th, we're going to work and we're going to see if we can get a special permission to have our holiday gala, which is we decorate with lights, trees, and we have Santa Claus come out and things like that. But again, it's kind of see what the captain will say about that.
Well, please let us know when that, if it does take place, we can help push it out for you, because anything we can do to rally our neighborhood, rally our community together to help support causes and to bring some joy into the holidays is definitely great. So please let us know. We can definitely spread it out amongst the community to make sure that the message is out there.
Sure. Something we don't, and I didn't talk about, is that as a receiving organization, we also like to give. And I don't know if you've been to West Pensacola Elementary. We've done a lot of the Studer Eye stickers on the ground. We also, if you have nonprofits or things like that, we'll do donations for your fundraisers, and we put packages and baskets together. So if anybody has a nonprofit out there that could use fundraising baskets, we'd be happy to support that.
Great. I mean, that's wonderful that you're a nonprofit and you're giving back even more. So that's really important.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about Turmoil. We talked about your position. Talked about the board, some visions and plans.
We could talk about more visions.
Various.
So
about more what?
Well, you know, I guess the key, and we talked about earlier, is planning ahead of time, and really going into 19, we had actually set up a new master plan for the site. We're going to be constructing, I believe, 3 to 4 new buildings, and there'll be recreations of historic buildings that we've lost in the past, whether it be a wash house, one of the keepers' houses from Fort Barrancas area, which was the original Lighthouse site. And in those, we're going to be adding one of in the wash house in particular, which is next up to be built. It will be the virtual climb, and that will be a literal virtual experience where those who can't climb, either too elderly or too young or too infirm, will actually have the same experience as their family and have that virtual climb with the goggles and things like that. But we'll also be putting that on our website, so if you can't even make it to the site, that you'll have that experience as well. And then we're going to be recreating our lost boathouse. We're going to start, and we had a boat building program, and we're going to really ramp that up and refurbishing. And so we've got a fleet of old wooden boats that we're going to get seaworthy again, and we've been working with Sea Scouts. So, you know, to tell those stories and also to increase awareness for a life, you know, teaching people how to make their cast nets and things like that. Just things that skill sets that we're losing, and we're going to hope to promote those out there as well.
Now, do you go visit any other lighthouses around the country,
actually,
or talk to other lighthouse organizations?
That's why you say that. I'm the president of the Florida Lighthouse Association right now, which is in Florida. We have 30 historic lighthouses. And the short answer to that is yes, I do. And with that organization, if lighthouse enthusiasts from around the state get to go in other towers, some of which you're not allowed to, you can't go into it unless you're with that organization because they're not open to the public. And it's also a preservation organization, but their mission is to preserve all Florida lighthouses. And then I have traveled across the country and visited. And it's nice to see what other people are doing and bring back a little bit of piece from everywhere else, you know, bigger museums, smaller museums, and also those lighthouses. That's correct.
So you're the president of the National of Florida Association.
Good luck or congratulations. I'm not sure which.
Very nice. Congratulations.
Right.
So
the next closest one you're going to see is Cape San Blas, which just got moved to Port St. Joe, south of Panama City. Cape St. George is in the same vicinity. Crooked River there are 4 of them grouped together, and then St. Mark's, which is south of Tallahassee. And then there's also a private residence, which is a lighthouse. I believe it's St. Joseph Point, which is just south of Port St. Joe. So you can do about 4 of those open to the public. the next closest one's gonna be like Cedar Key,
Okay.
right around the Bend area. But some of the bigger ones and more popular ones you want to see is like St. Augustine, Ponce Inlet, and Jupiter.
Okay. Mm-hmm. This may sound like a strange question, but back to the basics. So, what was the original purpose of lighthouses being built way, because most of them are so historical and such a long time ago.
They
What was the
are
main
aids
purpose
navigation,
of lighthouses?
the most fundamental of what they are. Our particular one is to guide you to the mouth of the pass, and that's we have a nondescript coastline. It looks like white sand up and down, and so to figure out where you're going to go, you need that tower to say. And we have the largest deep water port on the Gulf of Mexico, and they built the tower. First, they built it a quarter mile east of where we are, but it was immediately too short. The light was insufficient. In 1855, they decided to build the big tower that we have. So all your friends up in Rhode Island and things like that may be used to lighthouses, but they're tiny, 50, 60, 70 feet maybe. This is 151 feet tall. And they're coastal lights. They're first-class seacoast lights with a first order Fresnel lens. And that's a designation of a tower, meaning it would be the biggest and with the most powerful lens. And of all the 300 plus lighthouses in the country, there's only 13 with their original first order Fresnel lens at the top. But some would be stationed over shoals or rocks, and they would just basically tell ships that there's something to avoid there. And really the reason for building and the investment in this infrastructure is basically it was a tax base when the country was first founded. So there was no income tax, so they would put tariffs on and things like that to shipping that came through.
We have one of the taller lighthouses around.
We do. We have it's probably the third largest tower in Florida, but it has the tallest lens because we're sitting on a 40-foot bluff. It's the focal plane is actually where the beam of light shoots out.
Mm-hmm. But traditionally aren't used anymore because of the advances we have in maritime and.
There are other aids to navigation that you can use GPS and things like that. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't change their batteries and they end up having to use it anyway. Or if it rains, they may have problems. So we still have people who actually use it, but there are other more advanced methods. And but the Coast Guard still lists us as an aid to navigation, activated navigation. And it's also a center for education and community now.
I'm starting to get really nerdy with these questions, but my curiosity is piquing me. So, do you still shine a light out with the lighthouse?
For sure, absolutely. Every night, it's on a switch, and as soon as the sun sets, it comes on. You're gonna have to come out and visit.
I did not know that. Mm-hmm. I did not know that. Now I'm really curious now.
And if you go to our Facebook page, we probably about once a week we do a sunset tour, and you can see obviously the sunset, and then it shows you the lens actually functioning. It's pretty impressive. It takes a 1,000-watt bulb, multiplies it to about a 10,000 watt, and it shoots a beam probably about 19, 20 miles. It's limited only by the curvature of the Earth. It looks like a bicycle spoke.
Check the website out again and look at some of that information. Just I thought at this point they may not use them anymore. I didn't know that you were still doing that.
Well, thank you.
So let's see. I know we're sitting about 6:40 now. I don't see rolling in right now, but we definitely can pass along if anyone has anything else. We definitely can refer him over to you to talk about it. I'm really glad to meet you today, John, and talk to you some today. And I'm glad to hear how you're making it through all the turmoils and you pivoting and know the history that you were involved. You kind of had a history of endurance, starting out in one way, finding that be your passion, and then taking the lighthouse to a place that, it would have been made it without you being in there. So thank you so much for what you did for our community. Well, Lloyd, are you still there somewhere? What were you going to say, John?
It's actually a privilege to be able to work for the community and do what we do at the Lighthouse.
Very good. Lloyd, are you still there? Lloyd. See the today. Well, if not, I think what we'll do is we can go ahead and drop off. I know. Oh, on a side note, any big plans for Thanksgiving? Are you doing anything special?
We hope to have some family over and do some cooking. That's for sure. And we're going to give the staff off and the rest of the week and be appreciative for what we do have at this time. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we're living in a different world. We mentioned earlier between the things we've gone through. Who would have thought that with Sally, especially? I think Sally was one of those curveballs that hit us in a way that it really changed our community, especially the bridge. If you live in Gulf Breeze, but it changed us in a way that was really kind of unexpected. You kind of know hurricanes happen here, but that one, Sally, really just kind of surprised us with its strength and the damage that it caused, I think, to our community. So that was another turmoil area that people are still living through. There's still lots of blue tarps on the roofs around Pensacola. There's still some trees down. There's still some debris that hasn't been picked up yet. So I'm glad to hear you're getting your site back in shape, and hopefully, you have everything back ready by December as far as all the goals you have to get it back in order.
Right. And it does have a big secondary effect, especially if you think you're talking about the bridge. Most of the beach hotels suffered significant damage. And we're a tourist-driven industry. And we could be wide open to the public and nobody can come because our total room numbers are down. And what's really bad for Florida economy is that we're tourist-based and tourist-driven. So that sales tax really drives all of Florida. And without that tourism, I mean, one of the three legs of our economy. And now you're talking about services across the board being affected because of that bed tax or the sales tax not driving the numbers that we did. And so those surpluses are going to become deficits real quick on all levels, including local and state. So.
Yeah, you mentioned some museums are closing down. I know I attend a lot of calls with the Florida chambers. And there's numerous chambers across our state and across the country that are shutting their doors, closing down because the fact that the money that they typically get from sponsors and donors and memberships those things are drying up. And many of our chambers around the country, like I said, we need to help out nonprofits because they help out others. Many of the chambers that are having challenges right now are the fact that because we're a 501c6, not a 3. So we can't even apply for a lot of the grants and fundings that many of the 3 type organizations can and help them go. And so there's numerous chambers that I know that they're struggling. They're really looking at furloughing employees, cutting back and scaling back, and maybe even closing their doors when things get better again. So you're exactly right with sales tax and bed tax and just businesses. I mean, if we go through a second wave of the pandemic where businesses close down, like restaurants, bars, and everything else, many of the businesses won't be able to make it from that. And every business you lose part of your community, part of your economy, part of your taxes. So it's a big impact we're having here in the business world.
I agree. I'm speaking to some of my colleagues down in South Florida and Central Florida, and while they're open, they're still only experiencing 40 to 50% of their business. And it's really affecting the small business. And really, that's, like you said, it's the flavor of your local communities that's really suffering. It's not McDonald's and those larger companies. And what happens when we lose all of our local flavor around this country is you become this big, nothing but conglomerate retail and food. And it's kind of a scary thought. But
yeah, it really is pretty scary when those things happen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it's about 6:45 now, so I think I don't see any questions rolling in or anything. But thank you so much, John, for a chance to meet with you and talk with you and share some stories. And I'm happy the fact that you're in the community, you're staying here, and what you're doing. And congratulations on being Florida chairperson for the Lighthouses.
Thank you. I really appreciate what you're doing, and hope to come out and please. I'll love to have you show you around.
Yeah, I'm gonna check out the light one night. I'm curious to see it at nighttime now. You piqued my interest.
That's right. You could.
Hey, Lord, are you there somewhere? I could what?
You can actually go down to Jocko's and you'll see it. You can't miss it. It's the brightest golden beam you'll see, and it pretty much dwarfs every other light on the horizon.
Ah, okay. I would definitely do that then. Well, everyone have a great Thanksgiving weekend. Thank you again, John, for helping out with nonprofits. And the next Pensacola Network we'll be having in December. Take care, everyone.
Have a good night.
Bye. You too. Take care, John. Have a good Thanksgiving.
Yes, sir.